Let's welcome back to the show as we await the president about to exit in about 4 minutes' time, Walter Reed Medical Center. He is former Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal. Governor, it's great to have you on. The media speculation, do you think the media speculation has got out of hand? Should they just report the facts about the president's health? Because speculation is harmful and poisonous to the national conversation. Controversies like, things like he's making this up to get sympathy, or, he's doing it because he wants to avoid the debates. So your reaction to when you hear media speculation like that?
Well, Liz, thank you for having me back on. After listening to your last two speakers, I almost feel like we all went to medical school. It was great learning about coronavirus, the medicines and the treatments. So great job having those experts on. Look, I think you're exactly right. The media almost seems disappointed that the president's doing well and leaving the hospital. The doctors at Walter Reed may not be good at doing press conferences, but they are good doctors. And so instead of speculation, and look, the White House, let's be honest, the White House could have been clearer Saturday. I think they should have been more transparent. There were too many confusing messages coming out from the chief of staff versus the doctors. They should have just been one consistent message, but the media shouldn't try to fill in those gaps. They shouldn't try to speculate. They shouldn't try to make things up. You had a lot of people on TV playing doctors trying to diagnose the president, even though they hadn't been in his presence. It was ridiculous. The media acts like we're in North Korea. We have a free and open democracy and a free and open press here. They don't have to make things up. They don't have to guess at the smoke signals. So I do think the media added to the uncertainty. They added to the sensationalism. They crossed the line beyond what their job was. I'm not excusing, again, I think the White House could have done a better job on Saturday with their communications, but it doesn't excuse the media speculation.
Yeah, just do your reporting. I mean, we've got a team here. We do reporting. We talk to sources. Listen, we'll make mistakes. We mess things up too, and we'll just admit it. We'll clarify when it's needed. But, when you have MSNBC's Joy Reid tweeting out that Trump is faking his diagnosis to get out of the debates hours before it was announced they had to go to Walter Reed Medical Center. I mean, it's just bad for the national conversation. And then, so you had that, and you also had this. Another MSNBC guest says if there was ever an opportunity for a, quote, rogue nation to attack, that this was the moment because of the White House confusion. In other words, attack the homeland. If a rogue nation wanted to do it, they could do it now. So again and again, we see the media ramping up the hysteria, ramping up the overreaction to this story, and it's really distorting the national conversation. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Look, as Americans, we should all be glad the president's doing better. We should all wish him well. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you're voting for Trump or not. He's the president of the United States. We want him to be strong and healthy. And I pray for everybody suffering from COVID, including the president, first lady, and everybody out there listening or watching your show and all their loved ones. The reality is that shouldn't be controversial. That you go online and you find people wishing ill upon the president. And that's just sad. That's a sad commentary on where we are as a country. It's sad commentary on those people. Saturday Night Live, even on Saturday, they were hinting at maybe this is karma. Maybe, he deserved to get this. That's just, I know that's satire, but it's just ridiculous. This should be a unifying moment. And not only you had former Democratic officials and others online saying all kinds of ridiculous things. We need to be Americans first. We need to be unified in this moment. Whenever a president's health is at risk, I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it was Reagan getting shot, whether it was FDR or Kennedy, we should all want them to be strong, healthy. That's good for the country, and it's good for all of us. So, look, the Democrats went from one extreme to another. They went from maybe he's faking the illness. When that didn't work, you heard some of them say, well, maybe he's at death's door and he shouldn't go out and campaign for a month. They can't make up their minds what they want. All they want is they don't want him out there contrasting his record with Joe Biden. Now, I will say this. I want to praise Vice President Biden. I'm not voting for him, but I thought he had a very dignified response. He wished the president well. He prayed for his health. He took down his negative ads in the short term. Look, I think that showed dignity and class. I wish all the reporters, I wish all the Democrats out there had done that followed his act and followed his class act, followed his example. That's what we should be doing as Americans. And again, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. You should be praying for the president. You should want him to be doing well.
Well, there was also speculation about the continuity of government in those conversations as well. I mean, MSNBC's Stephanie Ruhle was criticized getting way out ahead of the story, asking Nancy Pelosi if the White House had called Nancy Pelosi to talk about continuity of government. I mean, so it just feels like everybody should maybe just sit tight. The doors are now opening. A gentleman just exited the doors. We're waiting for the president. Let's recap. He's about to leave Walter Reed Medical Center. Momentarily, Marine One has landed to pick up the president to bring him back to the White House. So so we've talked time and again, Governor, you and I as well, about, people wanting a September 12th, a 9/12 moment of just unity, of coming together as a nation, not about parties, not about Republican or Democrat. September 12th after 9/11 was when stores ran out of flags. People want to get together and support the president, the office of the presidency. We understand the controversies around the president, how he has personally attacked individuals. However, he has been diagnosed with a very, very serious virus. So when you saw what happened starting Friday through today, there's controversies how the White House staffers reported it, controversies how the doctors muffed it and duffed it. But now we're at this moment where he's about to leave. Your thoughts as the president is about to exit Walter Reed Medical Center?
Look, I think that's a great analogy. I worked in the Bush administration. I remember those hours, days after 9/11. Even friends that had not voted for the president were praying for him, were supporting him in that moment in our nation's history. And I hope every American watching him soon get on this helicopter, fly back to the White House, will be happy and proud and grateful that he is well enough to at least come home. He still has some days ahead of him. We don't know all of the symptoms. We don't know everything he'll be struggling with. He's got great doctors, great facilities, but hopefully we can come together. Look, politics shouldn't define us. I'm a lifelong conservative Republican. I believe those principles are great and better for our country than the Democratic principles. At the end of the day, we're human beings first. We're Americans first. Certainly, folks can find in their heart some empathy for the president. And by the way, I hope this also changes the way the president reaches out to voters. He sent out a very confident message, which was great today, about, hey, America, let's not let coronavirus scare us. Hopefully, he'll also be more empathetic on the debate trail, on the campaign trail. I think that would help him. I think it'll help him connect with swing and undecided voters. But Liz, you're exactly right. Let's not let our politics define everything about us. Let's not be about politics 24/7, 365 days a year.
President getting pushback on that comment, saying, well, regular Americans don't have the staff or the medical treatments that you have, Mr. President, and 210,000 people are now dead from the coronavirus. So he is getting pushback on that. Your reaction to that?
Well, look, you're right. He is the president of the United States. Unlike you and me, he has access to Walter Reed and some of the best medical facilities and best military doctors in the world. And that's great. I'm glad he does. I'm glad our fighting men and women also have access to Walter Reed. What we all as Americans do have access to are new treatments. What we do have access to is hopefully very soon effective vaccines, because this administration through Operation Warp Speed has dedicated billions of dollars to speed tracking, fast tracking these new treatments. One of the reasons mortality rates are going down, one of the reasons that hospital and ICU occupancy rates have even gone down, even in those cases where cases are going up, or at least the percentage of patients going to the hospitals and ICUs it has stabilized and in many cases fallen, is because they've cut the red tape. The private sector is developing new treatments, working oftentimes in partnership with our NIH. We can't emphasize this enough. We've got rapid tests. The White House is now, HHS is buying 150 million rapid tests from Abbott to deploy across the country. That they're accelerating. We could have a vaccine announcement from Pfizer and other companies relatively soon. We've already got, the president got remdesivir and he got other treatments that have been relatively newly approved for use against coronavirus. All of us as Americans benefit by these new treatments, by this new technology, by the new vaccines, by what we have learned. And we've done that because the administration's cut the red tape, they've prioritized this investment, and we've got a robust private sector. Those that want the government to run healthcare in our country also criticize everything that's been going on around coronavirus. You can't have it both ways. Thank God we don't have a one-size-fits-all government-run healthcare system right now in this moment.
Let's do a recap. The president is about to exit Walter Reed Medical Center and board Marine One. Will be airlifted back to the White House momentarily. What were your thoughts when you heard the story about the president was diagnosed? That wasn't disclosed. He had a positive result, but it wasn't disclosed. And also your thoughts about him getting into a sealed car with Secret Service agents, potentially exposing them. That's the accusation. What was your reaction to those stories?
Well, look, a couple of things. One, we do have to balance. He is an individual. He does have a certain right to privacy. On the other hand, he's the president of the United States. As voters, and as Americans, we want to know How is he doing? We want to make sure that there is continuity of government. We want to know that he is alert and able to make decisions and run things. That's why I thought the videos were good. I thought him making himself available to make limited at least comments to show that he was alert and active, and the comments from his senior staff was good. That's why I always thought it was alarming.
Okay.
It was the confusion out of the White House was not very helpful on Saturday.
Yeah, because you know what happens is then the conspiracy theories go into overdrive. That kind of the factory of conspiracy theories, out of Washington and on social media, just goes into really serious overdrive. We're hearing just word coming into the studios 1 minute away from the president about to leave Walter Reed Medical Center. We're having a live shot here of the doors where he is expected to exit and board Marine One to head back to the White House. This is basically the reverse of the story that we brought to you on Friday. So, we had an interview with Dr. Steven Weinberg, the former medical director for the Peace Corps. We pressed him hard, and he basically said, yes, he does feel the president is in the clear and that the nation should breathe a sigh of relief. Your reaction to that story?
Well, look, I'll defer to the medical experts. I hope that is absolutely true, and I hope they'll continue to monitor his symptoms. To your previous question, Liz, he's the president of the United States. He has to work. It's not like you or me. Look, if one of us gets sick and we have to stay in bed for a day or two, whether it's the flu or coronavirus, that's one thing. He's the president of the United States. He doesn't have that luxury. You already have Democrats saying, well, I hope when he goes to the White House, he won't go back to work. That's nonsense. Forget the campaign, forget the election for a second. He's the president of the United States. Every day, what comes across his desk demands his immediate attention. He can't simply hit pause. The world's not going to stop. International crises don't stop. The economy doesn't stop. So he does have to work. And so, yes, you want to protect as much as you can people around him, but there has to be a balance. You cannot put him in a bubble. You cannot seal him away from other people. He has to do his job. His job is more important than other jobs. So it is important he is able to do his job and go back to work.
Okay, Governor, thank you so much for joining us.